Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Forever Bristol City podcast. Bit of a milestone episode today because it is episode number 350. Way back in June 2020 when I started the podcast during lockdown. All that time ago, 350. So you've had to put up with my voice more than anybody else's during that time. A few people have fallen by the wayside, but we got a good crew working together now, and we're in a joyous mood because the final score at Ashton Gate, it finished City 2, Borough 0. Didn't see that coming. It was a good result, but more importantly, it was a good performance as well. I'm delighted to be joined by the Suttons, Neil and Tom. Tom, his first appearance of the season, back from university, and over in a different country yet again for Dave Tubby. You're in Luxembourg today, Dave. You watched the game on screen last night. What were your thoughts at the final whistle? Not that you were there, but what were your thoughts on watching on screen?
First of all, I now refer to on screen as from the moon, because when you watch it on Robin's TV, you feel so far away from the action. It can drive you insane sometimes. But in terms of the game, I mean, playing well means many things. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't always fluid, but it was disciplined, and it was a highly battling performance against, let's face it, anyone that finishes above Borough is getting promoted this season. So I came away at full time feeling like really, really satisfied with it. And all I can really say is there is a lot of life left in this season yet, and very positive going forward.
Yeah. Neil, what were your thoughts as you made it back to our joint car parking space?
With it, I think yesterday there was a sense of relief, actually. I think the goals came for us at the right time.
Yep.
In relation to it, and I think technically they were better than us, but there is something about us as a team that is quite difficult to play against. Actually, I think if you look at we gave Coventry a game this season. They were lucky to win that. We've beaten Hull, who were fourth. We've beaten Borough, who were second. We drew with Ipswich, who were third. So I think there's a respect for us with inside the division that we aren't the easiest team to play against. And we do hang in there, and we do hit on the break. And we had a fair amount of luck yesterday. But I think in some ways that luck came about from the previous three games where we didn't have that luck.
Yeah.
So, we hung in and we got the result.
Yeah. Tom, what was your view? That's the first time I think you've seen them in the flesh this season. Maybe you saw them right at the start of the season.
I saw them against Hull. I went to the whole game. But I think it's only my second or third live game. Resolute defensively. I mean, there was bodies on the line stuff. We had to ride our luck at times. I mean, Max did his best to make us concede in the first half, but I came away delighted with the result, obviously, but it was an effective performance. It was something that we clearly set out to do and hit them in the break. We didn't try and go to our stadium and outplay them. I think there was a pragmatic approach about our play yesterday of acknowledging how good they are technically, like Dad said, and just trying to be effective. And Sinclair Armstrong was exactly that yesterday against them. Both goals come from a bit of Sinclair hold-up play or creativity. And, it was good to see just how many players were throwing their bodies on the line, particularly around the penalty box. I know their manager after the game referred that they had 8 shots in the box, and only one on they had 3 shots on target, one really difficult one that was outside the box that Max had to save. But it was a determined performance yesterday.
Determined and the right result. I mean, looking at the statistics, everybody's seen this, but we had 28% possession, 13 shots against their 28, 8 on target against their 3. 18 touches we had in their box. They had 47 in ours. I think they were very, very good passing side, probably one of the better sides we've seen. And the total number of passes, this is incredible. We had 243 and they had 594. So that's pretty phenomenal. And where we're at, 22 games in, 6 points better off than we were at the same stage last season. A couple of positions as well. Goal difference better by 8, -2 this time last year, +6 it is this season. So if you just said with virtually half the season gone, we're within 2 points of the playoff slots, I think everybody would have taken that. Let's look at the team. Dave, the in the knowers were telling us Friday that Vitek was was out. Borges wasn't allowed to play against his parent club. Sykes had gone injured. He's out for the usual unspecified time. So look forward to seeing you in Easter, Mark. What did you see when you saw the lineup? He changed the formation, didn't he?
I mean, you asked the question a few weeks ago if he was a bit wedded to a formation, and we got that answer yesterday that he was quite happy to change it if necessary. The hard part when you go forward at the back is what to do about Twine. Do you have him outside where he's not necessarily going to be at his most effective? Do you have him coming inside? And I felt as we saw the game going on, he was kind of a little bit of everything. It was 4-4-2 at times. It was 4-2-2. Maybe it would be Twine or Annie's dropping in as a 3 and then a 1-2 in front. And I think it was just about trying to make sure that you had players where you needed them to counteract how technically good Middlesbrough were on the ball.
What did you think of the lineup, Neil? I mean, it sort of picked itself, but in the format that it was. I mean, I don't think anybody had a indifferent game yesterday. I've been critical of McCrory in recent weeks, but, you know, he stacked up well. But what did you think of that lineup? 2 strikers again. That's the 3rd game in succession we've done.
I think it gives us another option with the 2. I think they actually play quite well together, Armstrong and Rees. I think, you know, it just gives us a little bit. If we're going to hit on the break, I think just with the 1 doesn't quite give us the same options that on the 2 does, really. For me, playing Viner at left centre-back, now I don't quite get it, because last year when Manning was playing 4 at the back, Zach was the right centre-back
and Dickie was
the left.
And I see Dickie as a left-sided player anyway, but apparently he doesn't prefer to be on that side.
But he's better on his left foot than Zach is, as we saw with the pass back and at various times with Zach playing at left centre back in a 4 really exposes his lack of ability on his left foot. I think in a 3 there it's not quite so acute, but in a 4 I really don't like him there. In a 4.
Tom, what did you think of the lineup? 2 strikers, Twine and Mehmeti in midfield, 2 busy bees, well, behind the strikers, and then the 2 busy bees. That was a Lee Johnson phrase, Randall and Knight.
Yeah, I think we were quite. I think the lineup picked itself. I think we were quite lucky in terms of Ryan McGee getting injured, because he was really pivotal for them in like the first 15 minutes. And what Borough were doing well was playing a sort of 4-2-2. And then what they would do is they drop the sort of wingers into the middle. The Britton and the other fullback would stay really high. And then Conway could sort of just drop in, just sit off Dickie. And then they got a lot of success from that, where they got Whittaker and Strelak pushing on. I mean, Conway just doing link-up play.
Yeah, well, you said that to me because you watched the game with me, and you said Conway impressed you with his link-up play.
Conway's link-up play is so much better than it was at City. At City, he was a finisher, you know, play within the 18-yard box, Conway. But yesterday, he was creating for other people, and, you know, he should have scored, but he could have had a few assists as well. And I think Borough fans are not critical of Conway's link-up play this season, but more his finishing, from what I see. But defensively, until we scored, I thought our shape was slightly wrong. I thought that Twine and Mehmeti were too far wide, which meant that Knight and Randall got dragged into wide areas, which then opened up McGee. But when we scored, we seemed to settle it down, played a little bit more narrow, gave their fullbacks a little bit more of the ball rather than feeling the need to press the entire time. And I think it just highlighted the importance of, when you don't have the ball, when we have 28 possession, how important Sinclair Armstrong is to our team. Because every opportunity we've got with our wing backs or fullbacks yesterday, you just see them look up and it'd be like, is Sinks in the channel? And our first instinct would be, let's clip it in behind Sinks, because he's got so much more pace than Aylin. And there was almost this look of, he's not there, so we're going to have to play through them. And there was this trepidation trying to play through Borough yesterday. We got caught a few times where people are trying to hold on to the ball for too long, waiting for Sinks to do something. I think Knight had one in the second half where he's waiting for Sinks, and it's not coming because he's blowing. You know, the lineup picked itself. It's a strong lineup. I thought. And
the bench. Well, we'll talk about substitutions later. Dave, Tom just talked about link-up play. Let's get into the action. We had a shot early doors from Twine. I think it was deflected out to him, and he advanced forward, and it was a dipping shot. Another day. that goes in. But Conway, the villain of the piece, the amount of abuse he was getting throughout the game. But in the very early stages, he set up Whittaker, which brought a save from Max O'Leary. And then he set up Whittaker again. He hit the post when really he should have scored. Do you agree with Tom that Conway looks a better player? And I wonder how he would fit in our lineup now, because he was interviewed on Radio Bristol and was talking. One of the biggest things that he's found difficult is being up north without family. I mean, Middlesbrough is a god-awful place to live. But your thoughts on Conway yesterday and his overall play?
I agree with Tom, actually. I felt like yesterday we were seeing pieces of Conway that we hadn't really seen before. And what you see is as a striker that is evolving and is improving. And that comes with kind of earning your stripes in the Championship. And while I'm very, very pleased that he did not score, it would have been interesting to see what his response would have been and if he did learn from last season, because I didn't see him bite anything from the stands. I didn't see him react. He seemed to be much more mature, as though a lesson learned. And I thought he was pretty good. And in terms of the beginning, when Viner made that error to pass it back, it was Conway that was there on it.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, in that opening period, we did look quite shaky. There were numerous moments where you felt like a goal's coming here. If this keeps happening, Borough are going to score. They were threatening. And I felt like they played pretty well, if I'm honest with you, in that opening period.
Oh, they did.
And we did well to ride it out and withstand it.
Yeah. Somebody's written here on the text feed, I think it's Boiled Year. O'Leary display was one of the worst I've seen with a clean sheet. And then Richard Stewart said, clean sheet for Max, bomb scare O'Leary. I mean, that was it, really. One could be somewhat uncharitable, Neil, and say we achieved a clean sheet despite Max O'Leary, not because of him, because in the first half, he was all over the place with his distribution, wasn't he? And there was an incident very, very late on when we were looking for that very nice to have clean sheet where he was all over the shop. I mean, what did you think of Max yesterday?
Well, he's no
a couple of good saves as well.
He's no Vitek, is he?
No.
I mean, when you Dave's decided to go there, with Vitek, you have a calmness. Yes, he's going to make a couple of mistakes during the season. He made one bad one at Stoke, but he comes for the ball. He claims the ball. He has a presence. He's an all-round better goalkeeper. What I saw from Max yesterday, it just appeared rustiness. And I know we've spoken in previous podcasts about how much game time these guys actually get coming back, even playing Max and sort of the under 21s.
He could have played 2 or 3 under 21 games. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
There was just a rustiness to his play. I know it's difficult to step on, and perhaps it's such a specialist position, isn't it? You know, I've had a look at that chance this morning when it bobbled back to him. It's just a bad touch from him, and then it bobbled up, and then he scooped it, and we got away with fantastic by Randall covering back on the line. But
I think,
Dave, go on.
I was just going to say, it's not just his kicking is all right. There's a nervousness to him that we didn't have with Vitek, and I think in some ways, particularly in the second half, there was an element of the defence were like, oh God, what is Max going to do now? And they haven't had that with Vitek this season.
Well, that pass back very early on, which was done obviously right in front of the South stand, where Viner put it back to him. But Vitek is quicker with his feet, and I've seen Viner lay that ball back to Vitek in those situations, and Max made a howl of it. You said to me, Tom, watching the game, that his body language
was terrible. First half, he's got his like we're on the sort of they're on the break, and he's got his hands on his hips. It's like it looked like a guy that had not played and knew that he was making mistakes and had almost sort of given up on himself. And if there was a decent shot on target in first half, I think half time is crucial for Max, because if there was a shot on target that challenged Max in the first half, I'm not backing him to save it, because he's there like that, just looking at the floor. I think he's acknowledging that, God, this is hard. This is a gruel to get through. And people are on his back in the south stand. You know, he's playing in front of the south stand corner, so we can hear everyone.
Yeah, Max,
yeah. And you know, his kicking started going. He was punting it at Conway, giving it away. Then obviously Air kicks it, and I think it was just like this nervousness about Max, and he unsettles defenders. That's the thing. You look at, you know, what the highlights being the second half, where the ball spins up in the air, and everyone's like, right, Max will come for this. Max will come for this. Where is Max O'Leary?
Nowhere.
And then afterwards, McCrory starts having a go. Viner starts having a go. Dickie's having a go. And Max is just, sorry, guys. Like, you know, and it's that sort of, does he come, does he not? And then he makes the wrong decision in 95th minute to come.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you do one or the other. The one, you know, where it spins up in the air, he's rocking on his goal line. I mean, that's not going to bring assuredness.
It's not going to bring confidence at all.
Yeah.
Dave, you wanted to put your word in on there. Just before you do, Michael House said, have you actually lived in Middlesbrough, Dave? That's addressed at me because I said it was a cesspit. Not very nice. I only went into the centre. I only went into the centre of Middlesbrough once. This was back in 1987 when Borough played at Ayresome Park. So if you've been to the Stadium of whatever it's called, not Stadium of Light, it's Riverside. If you've been to the Riverside, you have to go into Borough. I went to Ayresome Park once, and you know it ain't very nice up there. Anyway, so sorry, Michael House, if you actually are from Borough, and I'm sure there are some lovely places, just like Clevedon. Here we are in Clevedon. There's the good and the bad in Clevedon. Dave, your thoughts on Max yesterday?
Well, just to say, people would often ask me, like, what was it like to live in the Northeast? And my response would always be, well, it's close to lots of nice places. And in that way, it's like Swindon. You don't actually want to live in those places, but if you get an opportunity to travel, it's fantastic. But back to Max, I think what it showed yesterday is that all the training in the world doesn't make up for match practice. You actually need to be in it to get it. And he was short and rusty yesterday. But I think what we've seen, if we can tag it to Sinclair Armstrong, is that when you get support of everyone around you, and even when you're not playing well, because Sinclair Armstrong didn't do it first, the crowd really got behind him. And I think with yesterday, people were nervous, understandably, because Vitek's out, he set the bar, Max is coming in, he knows that bar has been set. The first mistake leads to the second mistake, leads to the third mistake. Hopefully in the next few games, he will show what he was last season. And while I think that he always has those mistakes in him, it's worth remembering we did finish sixth with him as the keeper. It's not like it becomes the impossible job. He is a competent championship keeper. He just looked rusty yesterday.
Looks rusty and not somebody that exudes an inner confidence, which is, I think, what Tom was alluding to with his body language. Somebody said on the text feed, give him a few stakes to bulk him up a little bit there. But there we go. I was critical of Mehmeti yesterday. We said Zach Viner's playing like he wants to be here. Mehmeti's playing well, but he seems to be playing for himself. And there was 3 or 4 occasions in the 3 or 4 in the first half where Sinclair Armstrong was shaping for the pass, and Mehmeti didn't give it to him, which I thought was selfish, and then either lost possession or put in a weak effort. Somebody's commented on the text feed that Struber said Mehmeti was recovering from sickness during the week. I hadn't trained 100%. Mehmeti, of the two, Mehmeti and Viner, I think we got an outside chance of keeping Zach, don't you?
You basing this on the way that they sort of responded during the game. Now that we know that Mehmeti's been sick during the game and wasn't well enough. Now that we know.
Well, he should have passed to Sinclair Armstrong at least 3 occasions in the first half.
I think there's a much better chance of keeping Viner than there is of Mehmeti. I think Mehmeti's gone. I think there's an acknowledgement with inside the club that Mehmeti's gone at the end of the day. I think there's a better chance with Viner on the basis of the fact of he's come up via academy, his association. You try and make Viner the man at the club. You know, you try and make Viner
legend.
To be honest, though, he's going to be 30 soon, and if you give him a 3-4 year contract, we're going to see like a drop off in his performance. I don't know. I mean, to make him potentially the most, the highest pay in club's history, which is, I think, probably we'd have to go beyond the Callas, some sort of Naki Wells sort of figures. It's a difficult call. Because I'm sure Viner is thinking, right, okay, he's shown himself in centre back, he's shown himself in centre midfield to a certain degree. He's a versatile player. His availability is good. He's going to be wanting 25 to 30,000, David. Are you going to be giving him a 3-4 year deal with 25?
Well, I don't think I'm just looking. He's 29 in May. He's 29 the weekend of the playoffs next season.
So
you can give him a 3 year. You can give him a 3 year deal with. You can give him a 3 year deal with the club having an option to whether they extend it to a 4.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, but how much is it going to cost to replace him?
Well, this is a query. But then when you offer somebody that sort of money, other people are going to be wanting that sort of money. And as we heard during the week, I mean, Sykes, we had the
Senior Reg. I've got to talk about my interaction with Brian Tinian before this podcast finishes.
Sykes' agent came across, we're nowhere, considering in what he values himself as to how we value himself. I'm sure that's the same with Mehmeti. I'm sure Mehmeti's agent is like going, this guy got 12 goals for you last year. He's going to be pretty much the top scorer this year.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're going to have to pay 25 to 30,000. We're not going to offer Mehmeti that, even if he wanted to sign. And I think he views himself as top-end Championship. I'm sure in his own mind, he thinks, can I make the Premiership? I don't see.
Well, he could do it with us. He could do it with us. Tom, what did you think? You know, I've said all the way along, Viner putting his body on the line, looks like he wants to be here, not risking himself, pulling out of tackles or anything like that. Full-blooded. Mehmeti, he's 6 goals, 6 assists. You can't take that away from him. 12 goals last season, most of them before the turn of the calendar year. What did you think of Mehmeti yesterday? And he won't be here with us, will he, come August?
No, he won't be here. He is, for me, I think, taking a rather individualistic approach that I didn't see from him as much last season, but I think he's a better player than he was last season. I think he's more effective with cutting in now. But the banker of the week is Mehmeti over 2.5 shots during the game, because it's just like, right, he's cutting in and he's shooting. He's cutting in and he's shooting. He is, but maybe that is his role in the team. Maybe he's given a license by Struber to have that. He is more of a differential player for us this season than he was last season. Last season, for me, Mehmeti blew hot and cold at times, and if he scored, it would be 2 goals from Mehmeti, and that's how he got his 12. I'd go back to like Plymouth, where he got 2, and games like that. Whereas this season, he seems to be cropping up with goals and assists in more games.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately earning us more. But he's earning us more points off the back of his goals and assists rather than just scoring 2 in one game, which is great. Yeah. But no, Mehmeti's gone for me. I think he knows that. I think, he's not going to have. He's got this sort of status in the Championship now as one of the most creative players.
He got taken off after 54 minutes yesterday, but we'll come on to that in a moment.
I think as well, it's a little bit harsh about the shooting, because how often do we say, as a team, we don't shoot enough? And then when we finally have a guy that is shooting, and in a lot of cases, getting them on target and testing a keeper, now we're saying, well, he should have passed. Sometimes you need to have players in your side that are a little bit selfish and do live for goals. You want them to be thinking, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. If you think about some of the best players in the world, they win football matches, but because they haven't scored, they aren't happy. That's what it takes sometimes to live for goals. And it's okay to have that kind of player, as long as they're delivering over the season. And I think over the last year and a half, Anis has absolutely done that. So to judge him for not passing enough, sometimes it's a little bit harsh, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so Dave, stick with you. The opening goal, take us through it. I'd say probably it was against the run of play, but a good strike nonetheless. Tell us how you saw it.
Well, I think there was a certain irony in the fact that after the last 2 games, it comes from a good clearance. The last 2 games, we suffered from not clearing our lines correctly. Maybe you guys can inform me better of this. Did Armstrong mean that cunning little flick, or was he trying to control it for himself? Because from my camera angle, I really can't tell, because it either looks seriously cunning, or it's like you've had such a poor touch that it's turned out good. I really can't tell. But from there, again...
I can tell you that, Dave, before you go on. He tried to bring it down on his knee, completely miscontrolled it and went off his arse, which is typical Armstrong. It looks really good on the TV, but there's no way he meant it.
Because I was watching it like, that's really cunning, but it's your body language. It doesn't look like you meant it. But okay, an accidental control, he's got a bit of luck. And to be honest with you, that's the whole goal. It shouldn't go in. It's really poor goalkeeping. But I feel like after the last few games, we just deserve that little bit of luck. The supposed evening itself out over the season, the goals we've had disallowed, the performances. It's about time we had a bit of luck go our way.
Yeah. Neil, Reece, so has had a leather of the ball, doesn't he? Because it was Twine, I think, with the assist, maybe off of Armstrong's arse. But I thought Reece, not renowned for his pace, is he? Yeah, and I thought he missed the opportunity because the ball seemed to get trapped between his feet, but he leathered it. If Max had let that one in, though, he'd have been absolutely slaughtered, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think first half for me, Reece the Reece first half was the Reece we saw first 6 games of the season. I've watching him
And second half against Leicester.
Yeah, I think he's been carrying a bit of an injury. I don't think he's at 100%. He was a powerful runner yesterday, powerful presence in that first half, running the line up top. We don't score enough goals at the moment. We've spoken about it. And what do you do if you don't score enough goals? You have to shoot.
Or
you have to shoot. If you shoot, you get a deflection, you get a goalkeeper error, whatever. That goal came about because Reece, even though he had 2 guys in front of him, tried to shoot through the legs. And then the ball rebounded to him, and then he took the shot. But if he didn't take the first shot with the ball rebounding to him, then the second shot wouldn't have happened. So even though it was a bit of a... Because Twiner made a really good run on the outside of him for that. And I'm sure if that shot, the first shot, hadn't come back to him and he hadn't scored, Twine, we'd all be saying, God's sake, all he needed to do was roll Twine in on his left. But if you don't shoot, you don't score. And yesterday was a fine example of it with that first goal, because what a calamity from the keeper, really. I mean, when he goes back and looks at that, that is poor. And they've been defensively really, really good, Middlesbrough.
Yeah. Well, they were coming into this game.
Fair play to us.
Yeah, they were coming into this game 4 wins in a row, looking for hat-trick of wins on the road.
Yeah, but I don't think they conceded much during that time at all, really, either. And we before the goal, we were putting in some crosses around it as well, and it was bouncing around. We were certainly giving them food for thought.
Yeah.
With it.
Good goal. Good goal, Tom, from Reece. You know, I mean, he's what's it? Was that goal number 6 or 7? 7. You know, he's going to be on. I mean, he's a 12 to 15 goal a season striker.
Just needs someone alongside.
We berate the recruitment, but you signed Emil Reece. We got him on a free. You know, he would have had other offers other than us, but he's doing what it said on the tin, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's not been fantastic for the last 2 months. I mean, the Reece that we saw at the start of the season sort of fizzled out. But I saw a level of aggression about his play yesterday that, I mean, when I went to the whole game at the start of the season, I just turned around to people sat next to me going, what an upgrade Reece is. Because he has this like level of fight and this pressing power, and he's got a presence up there. He is a big, I remember when, you know, he played up against us, he bullied Dickey. And Dickey was fantastic, you know, physicality wise yesterday. All of our backline where we were right up Middlesbrough, and Reece likes that about. I think Reece is a dominant figure and can be, but I think he's been off the boil a little bit. I think, you know, maybe lack of competition or just knowing that he's got the start, he's got it.
He's got the shirt.
I think Sinclair coming in has given him a bit of a kick up the backside because he knows that he's got to score. In January, you know, are we going to recruit another striker potentially?
Well, talk about transfers as well.
So you know, and I think they, like you said earlier, I think they do play well together because they're sort of Sinclair and Reece are 2 different but yet physical players. Sinclair's got the pace, whereas Reece's link-up play, he's able to set these balls off, and Sinclair will just stretch teams. I mean, Sinclair yesterday, Aylan had to go all the way back for them constantly because he would just stretch that pitch, and that freed up Reece a little bit. Yeah.
No, they do play well as a pair. Sorry, Dave, you wanted to chip in there. We were talking about Reece.
No, that was what I was going to add on. Is 2 parts. Is first of all, they do complement each other extremely well, because when you are the lone striker, you've got to do basically everything yourself, and you've always got 2 people on you, and it's a slog. But because there are 2 of them asking questions, and they're asking different questions, they're both spreading the play. And in games like yesterday, where we only have 30% possession, we're always asking a question and always presenting a danger. Middlesbrough might have the ball, but they can't overcommit because they know if we win it, transition monsters come alive, and they always have to be aware of that, which was always holding them back a touch.
Yeah, and interesting, Tom of the Robin's Nest. Hello, Tom. Look forward to seeing you over Christmas and New Year. Tom said, what about that long throw from Reece? Where did that come from? You know, because I was saying we're the only side that gets our tallest player with the long throws to take the throw rather than be on the end of it. But that was a monster throw, Neil, wasn't it?
Well, I think he had about 4 long throws yesterday. And the first 2, yes, really effective. By the time we got to the 3rd and 4th, I think he was a bit tired.
His arms are done.
I think his arms are gone. So it's certainly, for me, better that you don't have Dickey taking those throws, because particularly when Rob Atkinson was out, you're talking about your best header of the ball. taking the throw in.
Yeah,
and who you
but
were
that's so
throwing,
Bristol City.
who you were throwing it to.
Who was that one with the windmill arms in the 70s who played for Chelsea? I want to call him Tommy Hutchinson. Bobby Hutchinson played for us, the captain of
What's
our...
a Tommy Hutchinson?
Tommy Hutchinson was a
Chelsea.
Coventry player.
Yeah.
But I think it might be Tommy Hutchinson as well, the Chelsea
I remember
player.
he playing Chelsea, did he?
No, that Tommy Hutchinson did. It was tall, thin lad, Bobby Hutchinson. Right. So, first half, it was an entertaining game, wasn't it? I mean, if you were watching that on TV, the stats show it, and in looking at individual incidents in the remainder of the first half, Mehmeti to Armstrong, save, Reece to Mehmeti, shot wide, Conway wide, Alfie Jones headed wide, Conway involved in most of their good things. At half time, Tom, we were happy. We'd been entertained, weren't we? But we were still viewing the remainder of the game with trepidation because Borough were a good team, weren't they?
I think they always carried a threat, Borough, throughout the game. It wasn't until sort of the second goal went in where it seems like
that's what I said. Ian Hutchinson. Look, everybody in the text feed. Ian Hutchinson's come in 5 times. Goodness me.
I think it might be Ian Hutchinson, maybe.
I think it might be Ian Hutchinson. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Tom.
I think Borough always carried a threat, but they're very good going forward. And they throw a lot of bodies forward, Borough. They leave a lot up top. I mean, they were pushing 4 or 5 against our back line at points yesterday. So you know that while they always carry a threat, there's always chances for you to score. In the second half, we should have scored maybe 1 or 2 more.
Yeah,
we got in a couple of times. Twine was played 90. Maybe you want a bit more from him. Play Fally running through Treacle on a counter attack. On a different day, perhaps we score another 1 or 2 there. But in terms of the second half, it was a lot more pragmatic, composed, and we looked so much better as a back five. With Atkinson on the pitch, we looked so much better. On,
Dave, they came at us at the start of the second half, and we've been critical of Max, but on 48 minutes, he saved from Whittaker. They were putting a lot of pressure in or around the box. He saved from Gilbert as well, I think it's an Australian international. He impressed me as well. He was playing a lot in front of us. Quite an intelligent, creative player. But Struber showed that he's prepared to mix it up a bit, making a very early substitution, didn't he, when Atkinson came on for Mehmeti with only 9 minutes of the second half played.
He won the game with that substitution. At halftime, I was pleased with how we were fighting and battling away, but I was worried. I couldn't see the 1-0 holding, and then in that second half, the strike that Max saves is a top class save. It's full stretch. It's not an easy one at all. It's not a should save that could easily beat him. And I'm thinking, please make a change. We need to change something here. And how often do you see managers just stick it out because the status quo got you ahead, so just keep playing that way? And then you can see the goal, and then they make changes, and the whole crowd just groans like, really? You couldn't have done something before? Yeah. Yesterday, he made the change. He went to a back 3-5. And it won the game. From that moment on, Middlesbrough didn't really threaten because we were disciplined. We sat in front. If people want to call it a low block, that's fine. But we always ask questions.
Yeah.
But that substitution really won the game for me.
Yeah, that's it. And that substitution won the game, didn't it? Because we looked even more solid at the back because we'd weathered their storm in the first half, got in front. Really weathered the storm at the start of the second half, and we're still on level. And then he changes it, and that's where we talk about not having squad depth. But you bring a player like Atkinson off the bench, right, and you strengthen the team, don't you?
You do, and also it created a bit of balance with Zach going across to the right,
and Zach went
rather
on the
than
right.
on the left in relation to it. And then you've got, you haven't got the proverbial square pegs. But then I think with it as well, start of the second half, we were just kicking the ball anywhere. There were times where we were just lumping it forward. There was nobody forward. We were just kicking it away. It was like, attack versus defence training drills. And I looked up at the clock and it's 49 minutes. And I thought, oh my God, are we just going to kick the ball away for 40?
Yeah.
And then in my mind, I'm thinking, God, this is Birmingham all over again.
Yeah,
at the start of the season, albeit that Birmingham just played the horseshoe and just lumped the balls in. It was an obvious substitution for me to make to bring Atkinson in to change the shape at that stage because he's probably thinking Atkinson on his way back can't do a full 90. he can do 40 or something like that, or 35-40, so bring him in to do it. I didn't see the Mehmeti change. I thought he'd come on for Twine rather than...
We thought that, didn't we, Tom?
Rather than Mehmeti. But if Mehmeti's been poorly during the week, lots of games
that adds up with everything.
That makes sense now with regards to the Mehmeti substitution. But everybody, when Atkinson came on, you could just almost like tell Viner's body language was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to play on this side.
He went across.
And then Pring is thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to quite enjoy myself at left wing back. And
well, when you look at that back five, then as it became, I mean, that is a top 6 back five. McCrory on the right, Tanner, Dickey, Atkinson,
Viner,
Viner, Dickey, Atkinson, Pring on the left. That is a top 6 back five.
When Thomas and I got home and we were watching the highlights, stat came up that I didn't realise. 8 clean sheet in the league, joint top clean sheets with Coventry.
That's pretty impressive.
So we are the joint top most clean sheets in the division.
Yeah,
I didn't realise at all.
I think when Atkinson came on defensively, it went from getting away with it a little bit to determined, more controlled at the back, more composure at the back, because we were hanging on 50 minutes.
Yeah,
got lucky first half defensively, and second half we didn't get. I wouldn't say that
we just played defensively well.
There was a resolute determination and the defending, and they're not there. And we're not going, oh, that was close. You know, I'm looking at it, and we've got Pring and Atkinson flying into the same tackle to try and shepherd it out of play. You've got Randall throwing himself here, there, and everywhere in the box, and it was like, I think when Atkinson came on, it just galvanised everyone a little bit, because he brings such a physicality. Yeah. I think players feed off that. I think when you see Atkinson and Dickey play next to each other, it's like these two big units going boom, boom, boom. And I think, you know, when Atkinson comes on, Pring becomes so much more a better player as well. Yeah. Because there's a confidence in Rob Atkinson when Pring's playing that I don't think he has when Viner's behind him. I think
because Viner's playing out of position.
I think as well. I think they've just got a good understanding of each other. And Atkinson's going to hold his position on the left, whereas Viner, he sort of gets dragged into the middle a little bit. He's on the left. He's not. And Pring's performance yesterday went up tenfold for me when Atkinson came on, because it was like he just understands.
And he did, and he's come back well after injury. Pring, let's go on. Dave,
before you go any further, McCrory too. I thought both fullbacks, wingbacks were great yesterday. They were under a lot of pressure.
I've been critical of McCrory, but I thought he had a good game yesterday, without a doubt. And Dave, let's stick with you with there was a pattern of play that led up to the second goal, and goodness me, Sinks. I described him yesterday as a Wilfried Zaha-esque. Those of you that he's still playing, I think the Crystal Palace player out in Dubai or somewhere like that. It was that whole pattern of play when Sinclair broke away. Take us through it from Sinclair's break.
Well, I'll just go to the bit before, because the substitution of Anis, I didn't realise he was ill, but I feel like that should be the sub, either Twine or him, because there's something to be said for keeping 2 up front. And if I was Armstrong, I would be going to Santa and asking, am I on your naughty list? Because what does he have to do to score a goal? Honestly, that strike, again, he's done everything you would expect of a striker. There's nothing more you can do. And the keeper just pulls one out. You know, again, it's not a should save. It is a stunning, stunning save. And sometimes you have to look at games overall and say, okay, Armstrong hasn't scored today, but he's done everything you would expect a striker to do in that strike. Yeah. And then it leads obviously to the corner. And I don't think that's a good area corner. I think that's been worked on, because if you look at Atkinson's run, he very much breaks off of the group and he goes to a place where I think Twine is trying to put it. So I think that is a pre-work corner rather than put it in a good area and see what happens.
I think listening to Rob Dickey post-match, I think that was actually Dickey's run to make, but I think Dickey knew that he was going to get man-marked, and obviously you would prepare. I imagine Middlesbrough did their set-piece routines and training not with Rob Atkinson involved. So when Rob Atkinson comes on for Mehmeti, that's a massive change in physicality and height. So if he's making Mehmeti's run, you've got so much a greater chance of Atkinson winning the ball, and you probably don't put as strong an aerial defender on Mehmeti. And then when you're left up with Atkinson for me is our best offensive attacker of the ball, because it's this level of determination, he just throws his whole might behind it. He always ends up on the floor.
Yeah, but he goes in the back of the net.
Goes in the back of the net. But I think for me, Dickie said that they'll mark me. He said to Atkinson post-match on the City one that he said to Atkinson as the corner comes in, you know, they'll take me here. It will free you up to do what you do best, and that's tactical.
And he scored. Yeah, it's good to see him score because he's a lovely lad, Rob Atkinson, and out for so long. God knows why Manning didn't fancy him. He preferred
That was personality.
Darling. Yeah,
That was
yeah, he didn't even know the guy. Manning didn't even know the guy, did he?
Oh, I think he did know the guy. I mean, he managed him long enough. I think with regards to it, sometimes in football, there's just personalities don't work, do they? With managers and players, it just happens. But I mean, for me yesterday, I mean, what a shame about McNally. Because if you're talking about aerially at set pieces and corners, if we had Dickie, Atkinson, and McNally.
Yeah, but then who drop? But then who drops out if those three are fit?
Well, I mean, if McNally was fit, then would you still offer Viner the contract? Because
Probably not.
You probably have McNally playing as.
And the way McNally is, it could almost be a career-ending injury with McNally.
Such a shame because I love the guy. It was brilliant, and to see him, Atkinson, and Dickie at the back there would have been absolutely fantastic. Yeah. But I think yesterday, watching it, the run, as Thomas has said, they switched off.
Yeah,
no one picked it up. Nobody was actually marking that front post, let alone Atkinson. I mean, when he's come on, it's not that long after he's come on either. It's about 10 minutes.
It's less than 10 because he came on 54 and the goal was on 61.
But was it 7 minutes? Was it 7 minutes? But with it, it's just like if there's two players you need to mark in the City team, it's Atkinson and Dickie, because Atkinson scored against Ipswich, I heard, didn't he?
Yeah.
On set pieces as well, and they just switched off. I mean, you'd be doing your nuts if you're on the bench at the Borough thing, because you're thinking, well, who else is going to win headers for Bristol City at corners? You know, it's Dickie and Atkinson in that situation, and it completely threw them. They didn't do it. I love the way he heads the ball because it's so unorthodox. Atkinson is a footballer. You know, the statistician, I'm sure that Manning probably looked at Atkinson as well and thought, he's just really weird. He's weird the way he runs. He's weird the way he plays football and all the rest of it. He's probably weird the way he heads the ball. He's an unorthodox but really, really effective centre-back. Wow. Really, really effective. And went down to Portsmouth. Portsmouth fans absolutely loved him, you know. If he had gone, and I think if Manning had stayed, he would have gone. There's no way he would have signed a new contract. Yeah. We would have sold him, and I think he'd be playing a really decent level in Championship.
For Portsmouth. Okay. Dave, Fally Mayulu. Got some minutes. I thought was okay. What did you think from afar?
I thought it was pretty good yesterday. I know we don't have the greatest of expectations of him, but he was involved. He was laying the ball off well. He was looking to be a threat. He does actually understand he doesn't have much pace. So there was one moment where he's running and he realizes, I can't do this alone. So he passes it and then makes the run. But I don't... Yesterday was one of his better games. I know he's not the long-term solution for us, but it was clear like subs needed to be made at that point. You know, Reece probably seemed to be struggling a bit. Armstrong definitely was, and we'll come to that later. But I feel like Fally gave a good account of himself, and somewhere someone will be looking at that game yesterday, looking at Fally and thinking, we'll take him on loan. Based on that performance yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised if someone somewhere is happy to pick him up.
Okay, what are you going to add about Sinclair Armstrong there?
So basically, it was the one area that I felt like Struber got wrong yesterday, and that he probably left him on 10 minutes too long.
Yeah,
because he was clearly done, and then he starts sprinting for stuff, and you start to think like, if you keep doing this, you're going to get injured. And I just felt like with Armstrong, he went 10 minutes too long with staying on the pitch, essentially.
Okay, Neil, Fally yesterday.
I was trying to just bring up. As Thomas said, he runs through treacle. There's no pace whatsoever there. But actually, the ball coming into him yesterday, passing-wise, link-up ways, he didn't give the ball away a lot.
No.
And actually, his first touch is quite assured. actually with it. I mean, he gets in positions. Yeah, you're not. I think finishing wise, I mean, he must be an absolutely fantastic five-a-side player.
Yeah.
I bet as a five-a-side player, he's just absolutely brilliant. You know, boom, 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 tall, all legs, doesn't have to do much running, small court, so the pace doesn't really come into it. I bet he gets it on his left foot and he's.
Well, look at that shot that he did against Coventry, that
Yeah.
instinctive bang. And 9 times out of 10, that goes in, doesn't it?
Yeah, Rushworth's a great keeper. But with it yesterday, I thought he was okay, actually. I thought he was okay, but if you were starting with him, I mean, when I went to Fulham at the start of the season in the Cup and we started with him, you know, Christ, you're not going to get behind the team. He's playing as a sole striker. He's not got the pace.
No, there's no energy.
He's not got the physicality to do it. But in a 2, I think as he's linking up, when he ran on just in front of the Dolman, he handed Sinclair a note that Sinclair probably looked at and probably forgot straight away. But I would guarantee it would be something like give us another 10 or something, because Sinclair, I just watched Sinclair on before that substitution lose about 3 or 4 physical chances. Ball was coming into him.
Yeah.
Defender was stepping in front of him. His performance was off.
He could have come off. He could have come off.
And playing him for 90, I mean, fair play. There was a time that we'd get to in the 88th minute where he's absolutely dead on his feet, but he sprinted down to the other end of the thing and then won a thing that we did a little bit of gamesmanship
down in the corner. Well, Tom's picked up on that. He did. I mean, he could have taken, because we were still there with 2 strikers. No, that's right. Sorry, we had Mayulu 74. So we still had 2 strikers with 15 minutes of the game. We could have just left Mayulu, maybe taken Armstrong off a bit earlier than we did and brought Stokes on, just to give him some minutes on the pitch. He's not going to weaken the team.
Yeah, I don't know whether you would make a double substitution because you still had the option of bringing Stokes on for Twine. I don't know why Twine played 90 yesterday. I think sticking with the 2 up top was the correct decision, because what Borough were doing was throwing everyone but Jones and Ayling forward.
Yeah.
So if you leave 2 up against them, you know that you're always going to carry a threat. But if you leave 1 up there and it's Mayulu, you've got nothing in behind. So then you're constantly getting onslaughted, because Ayling would just pick the ball up and he would just distribute it. When you leave 2 up there, at least you've got Sinclair, as he did, can just run through and he can hold it in areas. You just get yourself up the pitch. You take the pressure off a little bit when you're backed against the wall like that. So, you know, with Fally, I think that the reason for playing him is trying to get him a move ultimately in January. You're trying to get him in the shop window because you don't want the guy there. So, people are turning around and going, why isn't, you know, Ollie Thomas or Yeboah coming on? It's because, you know, if we didn't play Fally, you wouldn't get any offers for Fally. You need Fally to demonstrate that he's got a level.
And ergo, you want to do that with Cornick as well.
Well, I think Cornick's at least proven it in the Championship previously. You know, Fally needs to show that as a young player.
Well, this brings us nicely on, Dave, to we're going to talk about the FA ruling that's come out, and the main protagonist doesn't appear to get mentioned, Jason Knight. But in the 87th minute, it looked like we were going to have a repeat. There was another fracas in front of the stand. I've got to say, fair play to all those Middlesbrough fans who came down all that way just before Christmas. They made a right rumpus and what have you. But right in front of them, Pring and Ayling were squaring up to one another. And referee Anthony Backhouse, who I thought refereed the game reasonably well, he just stood back and watched. And there's some referees that could have dished out 2 red cards there because hands were raised. But what did you make of that fracas there?
It's hard just to say what happened and why, but for me, again, it's the key point is that we're at home and we are not going to be bullied. You're not going to come here and just do as you wish, and you want to see your players standing up for themselves. You don't know what's happened, you don't know how you've got there, but it's just a no. And if it takes things like that, then that's part of football. You know, you don't want to see it spill over. But at the same time, it's a game that does involve emotions. It does involve a certain level of discipline at the same time. But I simply saw players standing up for themselves, and that's enough for me. And like you said, the referee stood back, and fair enough for that.
Yeah. What you were going to say now?
Ayling's head went for a number of minutes beforehand. After the second goal went in, Armstrong got up and shouted in his face and celebrated in his face.
Right.
For
a long period. Ayling went straight to the ref.
And his head was gone. And then there was corners down at the other end where Ayling and Viner were pushing each other. Ayling was coming down. He was in about 3 or 4 shoving situations beforehand. But there was a time with like the ball went out one time for a corner and it bounced off the hoarding into Max's arms. And Hackney came across and shoved Max over as if he was almost like that. So I think the ref let a little bit go with the shoving and everything.
They've done that. I've noticed that a few times in games recently where the refs have sort of let the play go on.
But he didn't even book Hackney or anything like that. And he just caught the ball. It bounced off the hoarding. It wasn't as if Max was ran there, hold the ball and wasting time. It bounced off it. Max caught it back and Hackney pushed it over. Now, I think they missed a bit of a trick on the corners yesterday, particularly in the second half, because I would have had a left footer just swinging it in deep on Max because of what we already spoke about Max and crosses. But they were just keeping on with that Hackney right-footed. Primarily, it was on the right-hand side that they were getting the corners. But they didn't whip it in on the 6-yard box, and they certainly didn't. There's a bit of a trend at the moment, isn't there, to the amount of corners that are going in because they're whipping them in deep to the back post.
Yeah.
And for all of their 13 corners yesterday, really, they didn't hurt us.
No, and we were worried, every single one of them, we were worried about Max and what have you.
But there was pushing and shoving in. I thought it was sensible just to book him, but Ayling's head had gone.
Yeah. Conscious of time, but let's talk about the FA have now decided they're taking action against Williams and Cornick on our side, isn't it? Yeah.
And McCrory.
And McCrory.
Well, Williams doesn't play for us. Now, interesting, you said this to me yesterday, right? Here's an interesting one, and it dovetails into those that have been waiting for us to give that debrief on the meeting with Tinian. Harry Cornick, Brian Tinian said at the Senior Reds lunch on Thursday that it's in Cornick's interest to go on loan in January to put himself in the shop window for making a move. Chances of Cornick going anywhere on loan in January now have gone out the window because the hearing of the FA is on the 5th of Jan.
No, it's not.
When is it?
They've got the 5th of Jan to respond to
we got it right. So let's assume the hearing is the following Monday, which is the 12th. If Cornick gets a 3-game ban, that's the transfer window gone. He ain't going to be in the shop window for anybody. So good old Harry boy, he's got another 25 weeks at whatever weekly rate he's on.
It was a great tactical decision by Cornick, wasn't it? If I was being really cynical about it. I mean, if there's a guy who's like...
I don't think he's that intelligent. I really don't think...
Grab their physio by the throat. Grab his physio by the throat and throw him down the tunnel.
What I didn't quite get about it, because obviously the 3 that have been sanctioned primarily are the ones that kicked off on the away bench.
Yeah.
And the FA charge is saying that was not seen by the officials on the pitch that were dealing with the one in front of our bench.
Yeah.
But then Livermore, who's been sanctioned, the assistant manager of Millwall, that was on our bench because he was down on the floors, all the rest of it. And then the whole thing starts pretty much with Knight shoving Neil as well. So I'm not quite sure why Knight...
It promises...
Dave. I think that's the point, is that Knight pushes him, but like it's not that big of a thing. But the hands around the throat is kind of a big deal. And that's the instigator. And Knight kind of gets you've pushed him, but you haven't caused all this. Whereas a hand around someone's throat does cause this. And I think that's what they
look, it does certainly promise on Monday
And Viner was well in on the away bench as well with McCrory as Viner.
The away game at the New Den on Monday, the 29th of December, promises to be an interesting affair.
I enjoyed Williams pushing their assistant manager to the floor, letting him get back up and then pushing him back down.
The Tinian lunch. Look, if anybody's looking at the OTIP forum, I mean, it's well documented what he said. I mean, just a quick 2 minutes on the Tinian lunch as I saw it. I did some fairly bland questions, and I thought I don't want to be accused of a soft Radio Bristol style of interview. So I said, so Brian, have you got a plan A and a plan B vis-a-vis plan A with Semenya money and plan B without it? And straight answer to that was no. because he said the Semenyo thing is not in tablets of stone. I think it pretty well is. And every time I see him score like he did yesterday against Burnley, I'm thinking, yes, he's going to go. But as far as Tinian is concerned, right, he's not being told he's got extra funds. But realistically, if I was in their situation, you have got two separate plans, even if you're not going to go public on it.
Do you recruit permanently in January then?
Well, I've been saying on this podcast for quite a few weeks now, that the only way that we can effectively enter the transfer market is by doing loan signings. And what Tinian did say, this is fact, he did say they're looking at 2 loan players. It was interesting yesterday, I had a text from a so-called in the knower saying that those loan deals are already done. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what that is. But City fans don't expect to see, if Semenyo goes for 10 million, don't expect to see even half of that spent in the January window, which is quite disappointing. He did say they want to ship out Mayulu. Yeah, so he's going to go off somewhere. I said about, putting youngsters on the bench rather than naming the Mayulus and Cornets. And Brian said that is Struber's decision. So because why are we naming Harry Cornick on the bench when there's no intention of bringing him on, when you could put Ollie Thomas on there or one of the other youngsters? That's not going to happen. Tinian did agree with me that last season Elijah Morrison went backwards because he spent all his time on the bench and got no football at all. He said that they've offered contracts to, which is well documented, they've offered contracts to Viner and Mehmeti, whether they're signed or not, but they haven't. They're talking to Sykes' agent. Neil was at the lunch with me as well, so I think
he said about McCrory. He said.
Oh, I also asked them about the 2 key players who are out of contract in summer 27. That's right, which is Knight, and they are already talking to Knight about extending his contract.
McCrory technically is out of contract, but we've got an option yet.
Right.
So McCrory would have been out of contract in the summer, but there's an option yet.
Well, so he's
So a little bit, and then he said about Bird. There's been never any mention of Max, has there?
No. Well, we've not talked.
Max has never come up in the contract thing. So technically, you're getting to the end of the season. Vitek going back. And
we're going to have a new first choice. We've got to be having a new first choice goalkeeper next season. But I did say Tinian is one thing that you regret about your time here, and it was how he responded on social media at the time, or comments about the time of when Nigel left, and I think everybody felt that was some degree of humility there from Brian. But he was open. He wasn't loose with anything that he said, but it was a good lunch.
It did take 2 years to actually apologise, but I suppose
an
apology is
he did do it.
Is better than no apology. But yeah,
there we go. Next game. I mean, great that we got a week off, but then it's 2 games in the space of 4 days, 26, 25 days, isn't it? 26th and the 29th. Playing
26th, 29th.
Playing Friday and Monday, so it's not too bad. It's no different to playing Saturday, Tuesday. West Brom away. No easy games in this division. 2 tough away games coming up. You could say, well, if we could draw both of those, you'd like to win one and lose one. Millwall have gone to rat shit a little bit since they beat us. They lost at home to Hull at the weekend, 2-0. Last weekend, 2-0 away at Blackburn. West Brom did beat Sheffield United, I think, on Friday, but then they lost yesterday at Hull. 2 managers under pressure there. The Birmingham City manager as well, Chris Davis and Ryan Mason. Both of those will be looking over their shoulders with the sack coming. What's a decent points haul from the next 2 games, Dave?
4 points.
Yeah.
If you do want to get up towards those playoffs, that gap gets harder and harder to close. And ultimately, really, you need 4 points from the next 2. If you're really asking me a worst case scenario, 3 points. But anything less than that, and that gap starts to grow, and it gets harder and harder. We need to win one of them 100%.
Yeah.
But 4 points is what you want to be taking from the next 2 if you have your eyes on the playoffs.
Exactly. And Dave, it was interesting yesterday. Had we not won, Middlesbrough in second would have been 15 points ahead of us, and that makes autos. I think playoffs are best hope and what have you. But Neil, what's a decent pair of results?
I've been up to West Brom a number of times. We very, very rarely get a result there, don't we?
Yeah.
I went to Millwall last season where the unlikely duo of Viner and Cornick scored. They're going to be fiery as anything based on what happened in the home fixture. 2 tough games. I'm very thankful that January 1st we're home to Portsmouth, because I think that is a winnable game. So even if we don't get anything from the next 2 games, but our season is a bit of a roller coaster at the moment, isn't it? I mean, we're inconsistent. Like we just talking at the start about, we're not a bad team. You look at the top 4. You know, we gave Coventry a game. We beat Hull, who were 4th. We beat Middlesborough, who were 2nd. We drew with Ipswich, who were 3rd. And so you look at it, we're not a bad team, but we let ourselves down when we're not on it. You know, home losses to Millwall, to Blackburn, to QPR. You know, games where you just
we're on 22 games now. Unless maybe we should look at the next 4 games. Yeah. And you could say, well, 2 points a game is 8 points. But I see the next 4 games, we have to win 2 of them. And let's say it's 2 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat. That's 7 points. That would put us on 40 points with 20 points, 20 games remaining, because these 4 games take us up to game 26. You know, you've then got to manage 1.5 points a game, and you're on 75 points. It's extrapolation for those of you that are doing FPC bingo. You know, 7 points in the next 4 games, that would be decent.
Yeah.
And we'd be going into the window saying, you know, the fans and Struber saying, come on, look, let's just get enough to push us over the line.
I don't know. There's something about us this year that strikes of difficult to play against, but we don't have any control in games. And that is Struber's mentality and philosophy. He doesn't opt for control. He opts for, he says it's chaos. He likes chaos and attack. But
it's chaos in defence. We were welling the ball forward, as you said.
I think we're so unpredictable as a team. You never know really what Bristol City is going to turn up. And I think that's where we can frustrate better teams, because when we sit there and we hit teams on the break, it's quite Pearson-esque back in the day where we picked up. I mean, I remember when Southampton won like a 26-game unbeaten run, and you just play this sort of counter-attacking football. But I don't see with Bristol City in the games I've watched us control periods of the game like we did last year. And that is because of how we play. And I think we're all much more entertained this season under Struber than we were with Manning.
Oh, God,
The control in games in the middle of the park is sacrificed. I mean, we don't have passing sequences anymore. We don't typically break teams down. It's a lot of, right, let's physical presence. Let's play really vertical. Let's go long. And then we're going to hit areas, and we're going to play in areas. And then we're going to get our key players, our Reeses, our Mametis involved in dangerous areas, rather than picking the ball up on the halfway line, having to go back, having to shuffle it along and slowly work our way up. Struber's like, right, let's get Mameti on the edge of their box. Let's do that in any way possible. So then we're going a bit longer. But I think, is that sacrificed against teams that, you know, are going to sit off a little bit? So the teams that we have struggled against typically are the teams down at the bottom of the table who have a similar counter-attacking mentality to us.
Who play the low block.
Who play a low block. So when you're playing long ball, you're then not hitting, you know, the areas you're hitting, that's where their line sits. So it's different. With Borough yesterday, we were so effective because their line is squeezed all the way up so we can hit the areas right behind them, down the flanks. And, you know, against Coventry, they push their wing backs all the way up. Against these better teams, you know, they throw more at it. So for me, I think playoffs will be a massive achievement, but I don't think we've seen a final evolution of Struber ball yet. I think it's a transitional period where he's still got a lot of Manning players playing his system because he's not recruited that heavily. But you know, I don't think, for me, I think it'd be a massive achievement this season to get in playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised to see us 10th, 11th, 12th.
I think it's really hard to assess the season as a whole so far because there have been a hell of a lot of injuries, and at the same time, I don't feel like we've actually played in that poor in too many games. No. There's been a lot of games where I've said we deserve more. We deserve more. If anything, yesterday, Borough would have felt like they deserved more yesterday. And it was nice that I don't think we played poorly yesterday, but it was nice that we took our chances and we were disciplined, and we've come out of the other side of that. Looking forward, I think that we will get some players back, but I think in January we desperately need an additional forward, because one evolution we have seen is we've gone from one up front to two up front, and it makes both strikers better. You have an issue about, do you play Anis and Twine? Can you play them both together? How does that work? Which we'll see how Struber manages. But we desperately need that extra forward who knows where the goal is.
But
multi-positions.
Dave, to get that extra forward, right? Because as somebody said, we moan about our lack of goals, but we're doing decent compared to a lot of other.
It's not necessarily. It is about the goals, but it's not just about the goals. You need to bring on someone that poses a threat, because as Tom said earlier,
it's somebody who's got to displace. All right, it's fairly easy to displace Armstrong, maybe, although that sounds harsh.
But it hasn't got to be someone that necessarily displaces. It's got to be someone that competes. Because right now, when we bring Fally on, we can't do anything because he's just not got the pace. We need someone that complements and competes that you would be happy with to start. Because if Neil said, if you start with Fally, are any of us happy? No. So we've got two strikers, but we've got two strikers at the moment. We don't have a third. And that's the biggest issue they need to solve.
If you take Fally and Cornick's salaries on a weekly spend out, that's quite a decent sum of money that suddenly goes out through the door. Neil, I mean, to bring in a striker that's going to compete, it's got to be a striker that says, well, what have you brought me here for? Otherwise, you're just filling the bench.
I think definitely one of the two loans is going to be a striker. I think that's pretty much nailed on, I would imagine. Now, defensively, I think, it would be interesting if players go out, if we get a few offers. If you get an offer for Sykes, if you get an offer for Mehmeti, if you get an offer for Viner, theoretically, it's your last chance to do it. Of course, there'll be somebody who offers 300,000, like you said in the car yesterday, 300,000 for Mehmeti, and you just sort of like, well, that's just pathetic. I'm not even going to entertain it. But if you get somebody who offers 7 figures for Mehmeti,
you're going to take it,
or you offers $1 million for Viner, then you've got a decision to make in relation to it. Because at the moment, if you Viner there, you could put Tanner there, where
because Tanner's going to be fit soon.
Atkinson's back, so you kind of have. Interesting one with Earthy. If Earthy comes back on loan, which is muted, would he go in instead of Twine? I need more from Twine. Twine yesterday was peripheral, but then he got the assist from the corner, which...
Well, he got the assist. It was his initial pass that set the goal up for the first, if you want to...
Assist type thing, or sort of going back to the Alex Scott days, isn't it? Assist the assister. But I think...
But you get Earthy, but then that blocks a pathway for Stokes.
Well, does Stokes go back out on loan then in January?
Would you do that? I mean, at some point we have to look at developing our own players, and bringing Stokes at the beginning of this season, I don't think an injury should impact that. I think he should be the guy that comes on and plays that position.
Interestingly, good old social media, Whitwar Robbins just picked up the point. City, he's read this, and we read this yesterday. City are talking about Crystal Palace about a forward, and that's one called Essay, who they bought from Millwall for...
Very good against us last year.
And he played against us in the 4-3 win at Millwall, but he at home, that I would view him as a good addition coming in, even though he's not featured for Palace.
If you got somebody like an Earthy in, an Essay, whatever, does that allow you to talk in terms of getting some money from Mehmeti?
Yeah.
So that kind of frees it up, isn't it? In some ways, these loans coming in, do they allow you then to release players out of the squad that are going to be out of contract and you're not going to re-sign? So you can make some pragmatic decisions?
I think for me on Stokes as well, when we're playing this 2 up front, which is what we've adopted, and, you can't displace Armstrong at the minute, we're not playing with a central 10. You saw Twine yesterday have to play almost in this right mid position, particularly defensively, and that's not Stokes' position either. So I think that the era of central 10 is sort of almost faded out now. That players are demanded to play out wide, they're demanded to pick up, different spaces because of the formations that teams play. Stokes, he is unproven. I would love to see him because he had a fantastic loan at Cambridge that was cut short. But Earthy is a proven championship effective young player. If you judge off the 3 months post Borough last season, if you have an opportunity to bring him in relatively cheaply on loan, I'd 100% take that, even if it blocks the
pathway temporarily.
Because
Tom, you've just said that even if, at what point do we start looking forward to the season after? At what point do we start building? At some point, we need sellable asset.
Earthy's out of contract this summer, so if he has a successful loan, why can't we have a view to bring him in permanently? And for me, Earthy is a much more effective player from open play than Twine. So if you're viewing, I think that Struber's maybe not a massive fan of Twine. You know, judging off his interviews, he's wanting more goals and assists wise from Twine. I think Stokes, if Struber really rated him, would have been more integrated this season. I think Struber's maybe not sold on him as of yet, but he has been injured for large parts. But Earthy is a high energy player. He's another runner, and Struber loves runners in midfield. You just have to look at Randall tonight. And Earthy's pressing power for this gegenpressing system is so much more effective than Twine, who is so poor defensively. You know, you just have to look at when Matt Targett goes forward. And Matt Targett is a rubbish footballer. How easy he would just skip past Scott Twine yesterday for the first, and then we had to reshape our team and bring Twine and Matty in narrower because Knight and Randall were getting spread out, and it was filling up the middle. So that's.
I mean, here's somebody. I saw this name crop up on social media and did a little bit of research on it, and that is an out of contract free agent. Throw this name into the mix: Sam Morsey, Ipswich Town. 42 games for them in their promotion season 2 years ago. Went 33 games in the Premier League last season, out of contract in the summer, went to Q8, was training at Wolves recently. Well, that's what Wikipedia says, but somebody mentioned Sam Morsey's name to me, and you look at what Sam Morsey does, a 30-year-old Egyptian. He's an enforcer.
34.
Is he?
34.
34. But he's an enforcer. Do we need an enforcer in midfield? Because if we bring Earthy in, right? You look at our midfield. Williams is going to be fit at some point. Max Bird is going to be fit at some point.
But when?
Well, this is it. Yeah. Are you?
How long do you? I don't think Williams is coming back this season.
Right. But he's an enforcer type. I mean, I'd throw that name in Morsey, Neil. I mean, is he the sort of player that if you say, well, we need bulk in midfield for a season? No, that's the beauty about having loans.
I think earlier on in the season, but you've got to look at where we were when Knight was out injured.
Yeah,
Knight was out injured. We had Zach Viner playing there, somebody like Morsey
on a contract to the end of the season,
or 6 month contract, whatever, gives you. McGuane went across the Huddersfield, so you instantly lost that, and then suddenly, with inside that, we're playing a centre back in midfield. It didn't take much for us to do that. We have got the players, David, but they haven't been on the pitch. For all the Stokes, I went to Stokes, started at Fulham, and then got the metatarsal in 16 minutes. You can't guarantee these players. Is Berg going to come back? I don't know. When is Berg going to come back? I don't know. So I'm all for working with the players that we have, but if they're not on the pitch, then we find ourselves short, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's true.
And I think we're just in a position now where next month, are we going to look to get rid of Roberts, Cornick? What do we do about Sam Bell? Does Sam Bell come back? Because he's loan. It wasn't a season loan. I think it was.
He can come back.
It was a loan until January with Sam Bell. So if Sam Bell comes back, I think there's a little bit that if we get offers for a few players,
I think we'll let them go.
Then we're letting them go.
Dave, if you had a choice now, if you look at what we're cheeking to do, which is to get over the line, get to the playoffs, get through, improvement would be getting into the playoff final, maybe losing. But if somebody said to you, do you want for 6 months Sam Morsey or George Earthy, just for 6 months, which of those two would you pick?
I would take a centre midfielder and a goal scorer. That's the two positions that I feel like we're weak in.
But if you say the midfielder, George Earthy, a known quantity, Sam Morsey, ever present in an Ipswich.
Based on your question, I would take Morsey, because I feel like within the squad that's where needs are needed, because we've only got, beyond Knight and Randall, what else is there in the centre midfield right now? Williams, can you put Can you bet the bank on that? Not so much. I don't think you can. Bird, when is he coming back? We're short in that position that's where we've really lost points over the season because we're constantly have to fill in. So I would take that, and we also need another goal scorer, in my opinion.
In terms of first team players, short and centre mid, but then we have an academy that we are so reluctant to use, and I don't know whether that is because Struber doesn't rate the academy. He's obviously brought in one of his own coaches because I think there was an inherent issue in the academy, in that Jakanowski, or however you say his name, like Barrios Jakanowski, who by all accounts is the one that's got Renell Young in because of his contact there.
Oh, Renell Young, this is a Liverpool kiddie that went to Serbia.
Who Jakanowski knows.
Right.
So
he could be a Mehmeti replacement.
Well, he's played 5 games in the Serbian Championship, but which the thing is,
he's Liverpool.
So Mabude was fantastic at Man City under.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I saw that. Another
Mabude. But you're picking up a guy ultimately who I think is going to displace Yeboah. I think Yeboah on the bench is sort of null and void. He's going to leave. I think there's certain attitude issues with Yeboah there. But when you bring back people from successful loans and don't integrate them in the squad, it's like, why have you brought them back? So Meerholz, good loan at Aldershot, playing National League week in, week out, sitting on our bench, not playing for the under-21s necessarily, completely wasted. You may as well have kept him there playing senior football. Luke Skinner, Meerholz, Jed Meerholz, he's a CDM, big old powerful unit who was playing centre-back for Aldershot in a back three, but you bring him back, and why? Luke Skinner, successful loan, Western, Eastleigh, scorer in National League. You bring him back, not even on the bench. Peakover, allegedly you really rate him in the club, 17, centre mid, not even on our bench. Yeah. So you're having to then dip into these Morsey type players because you've not integrated Meerholz. You brought them back from loan for whatever reason. Yeah. Is it because you feel like you need to get some technical training in the academy in them? But I'd much rather them have a season at National League level, which is a fully professional level, competitive level for Meerholz, and come back.
I completely agree with Tom. I feel like there's real questions there because it just says to me there's a real lack of communication somehow. Because why would you bring them back not to give them game time? If you're going to bring them back and back them, you give them game time.
Or you give them time on the bench to give them experience with the first team match.
But what does
No.
With Morrison, that's setting back a year.
But then you play them. Well, then your under-21 team, you play them regularly.
So what's the point in? For me, the under-21s is null and void. You may as well, if you get them into a National League loan where they're playing 90 minutes every week, that is so much more beneficial for their development
than under-21.
Yeah, than under-21s. You just have to look at Semenyo. He had failed loans, but at least he was going to EFL clubs. Semenyo didn't rot in our under-21s. How many players from our under-21s have made it to our first team? None. Conway stepped up from the under-18s. Scott stepped up from the under-18s. Kelly stepped up from the under-18s. All our successful academy players. There's never been one that's gone from under-21s and made it into
18
the first
to
team.
21 and first team.
We've had 18s, excelled at 18s, then gone straight into the first team. It's never been, same with Semenyo. Semenyo didn't play 21s. These players that are in our 21s that you sort out loans for, why?
But then, so that really questions what is the value of under-21 teams?
Well, I think it just highlights
because it's like a fudged football combination, reserve league.
I think that for other teams, there's perhaps some strength in it. But our under-21s are so, they're pretty woeful this season as well. You just have to look at their results. And we had a very successful under-18 crop last year. And how many of those successful under-18s? I mean, they made it to the FA Youth Cup semi-final. We gave Man City a game.
No, we won the final.
We were in the final, weren't we? Yeah, we won it. What was the one that we played Man City and just missed out? That was like the season before. The season before. So we've got a really successful under-18 crop. Yeah. How many has been integrated into the first team? How many has been given these league loans and left there and just left to develop? We constantly, it's like these hoarding these players in the 21s. And they never ever develop in these 21s.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, look, I think we're done. Episode 350. Next episode will be a review of the West Brom game, which is going to be done on the morning after. So that'll be on the Saturday.
27th.
Yeah, Saturday the 27th. We'll be reviewing that. I think in the midst of the January transfer window, I think the accounts are going to come out and they are going to show a pretty unhealthy loss, which is going to be the justification for non-spending of money. When Mr. Lansdowne says what the football club makes, the football club can keep. Well, that's after it's lost 20 million, but we don't know how much of that 20 million is central Bristol sport related costs that
So it's operating
lobbed
costs.
lobbed into Bristol City's stuff. But we're in a good position. There's no doubt about that. As we said earlier, we're 6 points better off than the same stage last season.
We did have a rotten first half of last season. It was only sort of.
And that's 6 points. No, but if you added that, we got into the playoffs with that ridiculously low 68 points. So if we're 6 points better off than the same stage last season, add that.
You've got to be careful when you compare seasons like that, because I believe we won 3 from 3 over the Christmas period last season. So it catches up with you very quickly from this point onwards.
We did. But look, everybody who's listened or watched us today and is going to listen during the week, let's wish you all a very Merry Christmas. We won't say Happy New Year yet because we've got some games to get out of the way before we do that. 2 tough away games. I want 7 points from those 2 away games, and then I'll leave. No, 7. Oh God, I want 7 points from the next 4 league games. Yeah. Okay. All it remains to say is Merry Christmas, everybody, and let's hope we have some fun going into 2026, because certainly it is more entertaining going to Ashton Gate than it has been for quite a few years. As we say, chaos is something that we like, because you never know what's going to happen with Struber Ball.
Didn't call yesterday.
Manning Ball would send even somebody suffering from insomnia to sleep. In fact, maybe he's not in football at the moment. Maybe he could do some voice tapes. Hypnotherapy. Half-time team talks and what have you. But Liam Manning's got a new vocation there. Unkind. But there we go. Dave, look forward. Dave's coming over to the UK, so we're going to meet Dave in person for the second time. So good. And we're looking forward to Christmas. So everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for your support. All the best, and bye-bye for now.